Lunchtime.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hey,
Welcome
hey.
to the Simply Together show on the 11th of April. My gorgeous co-host today is the lovely Nike. How you
Oh,
doing?
I'm in love with you, Cecile. I need to talk to you every day. It's all good, thank you. We've had 4 days
Good.
off work. It's been Easter, a good time of reflection. Sorry, you're about to fall down there. Don't know what is wrong with this thing. Right, okay, sorry about that.
Your
Yeah, it's been
reflexes, you literally just went like that.
all those years at Taekwondo. Boom.
Oh, okay. So
No,
you had a
no.
lovely Easter. That's good.
Yeah, it was really good. Good. I hope you did as well, and everybody listening did.
Well, I did a lot of visiting out and about. So yes, had a lovely Easter.
Oh, good.
Hello, Dee Bailey. Hello, how are you? So, today we're going to have a conversation about the junior doctors' 4-day strike. Do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? What do you think? Drop us a message. Shelley's going to put out a poll. So, have a look at that as well. But if you can just drop us a message, if you're there, if you're just listening, just put a little something, tell us what you're thinking. And yeah, let's see where this kind of goes. So, Nike, what do you think?
What do I think? I'm a rebel without a cause. Actually, I do agree with the strike. On the one hand, I agree with the strike, but on the other hand, I'm concerned about people whose important appointments are being missed. You can't help but worry about those people. But when I just look at the state of everything and everything that is coming to light, I can't help but agree with it. It's yeah, it's I don't know what else can be done to make the powers that be understand what we're asking of people. Because we've said it often enough on this show about having to look after yourself before you can look after yourself. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% au fait with all of the conditions and things that they're striking about, but I just think if you've taken all that time to go into that profession, and it's a big deal, it is not the same as being an administrator in the civil service going on strike. And I use that as an example purely because that's lived experience. It's not the same because, you don't have any keys to the hospital there. Yeah, it's serious times, I think.
Yeah.
Very serious.
So the lovely Dee has said she agrees with the strike. We are trusting these people with our lives. Let's be fair, £14 an hour is not a decent wage.
Exactly. It's kind of ridiculous. Well, especially when you think on the back of that, they have to pay back their student loans, etc. Okay, I suppose others might argue that everybody has to pay back their student loans, but we do know that they can end up in affluent situations in the end. But I don't know. I've just had lots of it's
That's not right now, though, is it? That's where
no,
they could end
exactly.
up, and that's where we
Yeah.
could. Any of us who, even if you don't go to university, but if you do go to university, the job that you get when you first come out might only be hopefully more than minimum wage. Otherwise, you've gone to university and you're getting minimum wage. But ultimately, you can still end up in a very affluent job.
Yeah.
But to start
But you've
with,
got to
these young people are working ridiculous hours. And I saw something on social media which said, would you like a junior doctor who has been working 14 hours to then diagnose you or treat you with something when they're exhausted? And no, I don't really, because they could make, they're not there. I'm not saying they're going to make mistakes, but they're exhausted. They're exhausted.
Well, they could make mistakes because let's be honest, I know what I'm like when I'm exhausted. You do not hear. You don't necessarily. You might hear the first 3 words of a sentence and not listen to the rest. And there are so many things that are going on in your body when you're exhausted. And yeah, it's. I didn't realize I felt this strongly about it actually.
So, Shelley, what's your opinion?
Yeah. With the doctors, when you actually look at and you break down what it is that they get per hour, if you were to look at a skilled person in any other profession, a basic skilled person, so for me, if I'm doing a basic hourly rate for my own business as a baker, I normally work at £10 an hour, and that would be your basic. So when you look at that and you say, right, okay, something like a wedding cake would be £20 an hour because you're working little things and little bits of sugar and everything else. That takes the time. That's exactly the same skills as the doctors are doing. When you break it down into something as simple as that. Some others that are out there striking at the minute, I don't necessarily agree with. They have had a pay increase, but they're arguing over little things that it doesn't follow with the rate of inflation and everything else. But they can strike. Well, they are striking because they can strike. Anyone else that's in another normal job that is in exactly the same position cannot strike because they're not underneath those things that are then meant to help us, not necessarily meant to really help us in as much as that they can then go on strike. Yes, they are due something, but for them to actually then strike, I don't agree with. But things like for the doctors and things, yes, for them to actually go on strike, and the nurses when it goes through, because it all depends on which they fall under, because then not everyone's underneath the same. But when you've had the nurses, when you've had the healthcare workers, that when they have then striked, it's got to be something serious for someone in that profession that goes into it because they're a caring person to then actually say, no, I cannot carry on with this anymore. You have to make a stand and strike. We were just saying just before we came on air, I'm one of those people that has actually been affected by the doctors going on strike. I got a phone call first thing this morning and I felt sorry for the woman on the phone because she was then saying, you do it. I'm just phoning you from the hospital about your appointment. And she did this big breath. And I was like, I know what's coming because I've been that other person on the end of the phone when I've had to phone up one of my customers and say, oh, I'm sorry, but your engineer's not coming today or something because their washing machine's broken. That kind of a thing. And she must have been just sat there all morning just making these calls because they haven't got anyone to cover their appointments. And I was like, yeah, fine. But then my appointment is always, it's nothing serious. It's just what would be my general checkups that I haven't had since the beginning of the COVID because it was caught up with that. So my time has come for my appointment that when I had the letter come through, I ended up with that come through 3 months ago, something like that. To then say it was then coming up this week, and then to then have it then cancelled, and then I'll be back at the end of the queue, I'm presuming. Again,
should they not put you back to the front of the queue?
Yeah, I don't know quite where it works.
Yeah, it depends. It will slot in again amongst all the other things, depending on their agreements.
Yeah,
because
but she couldn't say on the phone because I said, would I get a text? Would I get a letter? And she goes, oh yeah, eventually when it gets around to it, it'll be a letter that then come out. And I did kind of half ask, where do I fall? And then it just then falls into it.
Because the people that would be behind you in the queue have already got their appointments, because that is next week, week after, week after. So you've then got to slot in behind them.
End of hand, yeah.
Unless there's a cancellation. But so I will flip between devil's advocate here today, because I'm a bit like Switzerland. I don't know if I've got a definitive answer as to whether they should or whether they shouldn't. But the amount of times those appointments are cancelled, yours is a routine one, but at some point that becomes more than a routine one because it's been cancelled so many times, or it's been missed so many times. And what could have been an ordinary appointment may, for some people, turn into something that's now an urgent appointment. So
yeah,
how many times do you have those put off, those ones that are non-urgent?
But I think when it's striking, I think the tendency is for us to just look, oh my God, they're on strike. And whether we agree with it or not, we will look at, and I'm not saying that we're necessarily doing that, but I think in general, we would end up looking at it in isolation, thinking, oh, well, it's just the doctors and they haven't got enough pay. But we've already touched on some of the knock-on effects of that. That person that had to make that phone call, like you said, sitting there thinking, oh my God, I've got to impart bad news. There's the impact of you having to receive that news. And then for me personally, it is not contained just to that. It is part of a broader issue, but it's easier to stay focused on there because then we don't know what is happening over there. Oh dear. Oh, I missed that one. I missed it there. I'll leave you down here.
You lost some of that stickiness.
I know, it's gone. It's gone. I wasn't able to get it that quickly there. But then what I will say is that we're directed to focus on those things as if this thing is happening in isolation just to the doctors. I think the response that we had to COVID yes, I accept the fact that it might have been, I don't even really want to say that word, but I have to say it for quickness, unprecedented, and stuff like that. The fact that they've come up with a payment agreement for train drivers, there is enough stuff to go around. And I'm not saying I suppose it depends on your belief system and what you think about how these things should be set up, etc. But when you just look at it across the board, and if you not just the junior doctors, which is national, and you look at it with everything else, and then you look at what's happening in other places and where places are being targeted, and the few, it's mad.
Well, I've got go on.
No, I was just going to say, really, truly, for me, as much as I agree with the strikes, I do, like I said, worry about the people there, but it's also the knock-on effect of other people that is a big concern.
So I just put a post out on Facebook, just asking anybody just to, comment on my post. So one of my friends, Mark Bristow, he has said that he thinks it's right that they are able to exercise their right to strike. He also thinks that drawing attention to poor pay and conditions and chronic understaffing and being overworked is important. It is in all of our interest to get these matters properly resolved. He does think, however, that seeking 35% as a pay rise is somewhat excessive when you look and see what other professions are being able to secure. So, but have they gone to 35 knowing that's going to be knocked down?
Yeah. I mean, you would go in for it. You would say, yeah, this is what we think, and then go in with that. With that offer.
But if it's a percentage, that percentage sounds high. But if the starting salary is already really low, then 35% is not really that high.
Mm.
If you make this similar comparison to like what Shelley made earlier, so you take a junior doctor who's on £14 an hour, and then they're asking for a 30. Okay, let's do 30 because my brain works quicker that way. So they're asking for £5 an hour increase.
Mm.
Whereas if the people who were striking, there's some people who have been on strike who are earning quite substantially more than that. 35% for them will be much more.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, this is for me. This has come at a time where I have been scrutinising how things are reported in the press. The agenda, misinformation, etc. So, for them to just turn around and say, "Oh, they're asking for 35%." Oh, well, no. Wake up, hold a minute.
And it's when both any of the powers in B, when they start fiddling around with the numbers that they throw out, as in percentage wise, exactly as you said, Nico, that a percentage you kind of think, oh yeah, that'd be good, but it doesn't actually equate properly when you actually look at what the numbers are. And one of the other things that, because my husband loves listening to podcasts, and we were driving back from Weymouth, and he put a podcast on, and they happened to be talking about where the figures come from. So not necessarily about what the politics are, but where these figures are coming from. And where they said that 35% kind of comes from is how they've worked out where the money should be coming from because of like the inflation and things. Now the inflation, what they worked out at was coming from not what necessarily people look at, as in like what your inflation of your mortgage, your shopping, and those kind of bills. We actually base the information on how much retail price has gone up. As to
the retail price
more.
Yeah.
But the retail price has always been funny, so they should never have used that as a base number to work out their things. So, I mean, we even turned around and said about it last night. There's more and more adverts that I've noticed that over 50% of these people, 60, 70% of these people agree with something. So whether it be like this particular one was face cream, they enjoyed this face cream. But when you look
they
at
have to put the numbers.
They've used something like they didn't ask 100 people, they didn't ask 50 people, or it's easiest to then say 100 people, and then they could say 50 people liked it, 50 people don't like it, so it works out as 50%. It's kind of like 74% of people liked it. Oh no, 74 people were interviewed, and it worked out as 60% liked it. So it's almost as if they carry on asking people until they get the percentage that they think is okay. You know what I mean? It's so much of all these figures that kind of come out, and you're like, hang on, it's doing my head in.
So we've got 2 messages on here from Angela Seeley. So if junior doctors are made to continue on the salary they're currently receiving, there won't be future strikes. There won't be no future strikes because junior doctors will have moved to countries where their skills are appreciated. The same is currently happening with the teachers. The numbers are drastically reducing in these professions, and they are
100%. 100%.
Going. Like Dee said, what are the options? We then lose them to overseas. There's already a shortage. So then we then lose some more because actually their skills are then appreciated in other countries much more than it looks like they're appreciated here.
And countries are shutting down now. Was it Zimbabwe? I can't remember. One of the African countries with a big health. They've passed a law. UK agencies are not allowed to recruit in that country for healthcare workers. I don't know how that's going to work on the rights of the citizens to leave, but notwithstanding,
do you know how they're doing that?
Being noted.
Do you know how they're doing that? My niece lives in Johannesburg. She's training to be a doctor. Now, the rest of the family have moved back to the UK. Well, I say back to the UK. My brother-in-law moved back to the UK. The rest of them are South African, but the family has moved back. But her course that she's doing as a doctor, to be a doctor out there, doesn't directly relate to what's been offered here. So she couldn't transfer her course from out there to over here. So it's almost like you'll lose. So she's halfway through her training. She'd lose everything that she's ever done and have to start over again if she was to start here. Those skills weren't transferable.
Because I've got loads of doctor friends who trained in Nigeria back in the day when Nigeria was one of the top places, and even there. But when they came here, they didn't start again, but they had to qualify. There was a course that they had to do to qualify. But in terms of the healthcare, obviously the bit that does support the junior doctors and other all that profession, where they have been going, yeah, they're not allowed to actively recruit. And one has done it, the others will follow. It's a tough one. I don't really look at it as just an issue for the doctors. It's very widespread, and it's curious to how we react over here compared to, say, like in France, for example. So I've been having a little nosy about there, not this morning, just generally. And because I remember saying at work the other day, somebody was complaining about the strikes. And I said, well, what are you complaining about? I said, we should have a general strike. And they're like, what do you mean? Because it is a global issue. And obviously, if people are going to start shutting down borders and saying you can't do this, you can't do that, then it goes back to what we said at the beginning again. It's that ripple effect, isn't it, where it starts to knock on to other things. And what people are looking at. The doctors are looking for good pay and conditions, which I personally agree with Dee. It's got to be commensurate with what they are doing and what they've done to get there. But by the same token, other people will look at, for want of a better word, the distribution of wealth, where it's coming from, where are the screws being tightened? Why is it that there's supposedly not enough money to do these things? What is the agenda? Break the junior doctors. Oh, then, dare I say it? Oh, well, it's not sustainable. Therefore, we should cancel the NHS and everything should be privatised.
Yeah.
Which may be the way that some people want it to go. So whether that's whoever's looking at that, because there's people looking at that, because there will be people, and they have been.
Well, because the agendas are not transparent.
Yeah, and maybe that's the direction that they want, but I certainly do not want that.
Neither do I.
To have, we need to look after the NHS. We need to look after everybody that works within the NHS, because I don't want to be like America, for example, where I've got to pay and I've got to have insurance and I've got to have this and I've got to have that, because that's a whole different ball game. We are very lucky. But we need to look after it. So Angela is saying that the 35% is all about the fact that they haven't had pay increases for a number of years, and obviously inflation as well.
Because that's what happens in the public sector. Sometimes they will give something conciliatory. They could say, oh, well, we're going to give you this payment, but then they won't consolidate it. So that when they get a pay rise the following year, even though they might say 10% or 2%, that is 10% or 2%, not of what they're just living off for this year, it's of what they were living off some years ago without taking into consideration.
Yeah.
Like you said, oh my God, it's mad, isn't it? It's mad.
It is.
Mad.
And what's it doing? It's if we have less junior doctors, that's going to affect our waiting list. The waiting lists are already long as it is. So then that's just going to make it 10 times worse. You know,
the thing of it, well, I mean, different things were added in. So like the waiting list times and them having to actually, and I do watch a lot of the fly on the wall kind of documentary things. So waiting lists for having operations and things like that. And the different things that actually then comes into that sort of, it's not necessarily you waiting for your operation. It's you getting to that point and they've got to have a bed free for you in the place that you need to be in after your operation. There's all this kind of like bits and pieces, but it seems to be ever since they tried to put a managerial thing in it, running everyone individually like businesses, it was allowed to go on for so long, going slightly wrong. Because as my mum said, she's of the generation where you had the matron. It wasn't the doctor that was doing anything on the ward. The matron did absolutely everything. And it was then more that person, not that number that's in the system that's showing up that, okay, you're going to turn red because you've been waiting for so long on your waiting list, wherever you happen to be. It's an actual person that needs to come through. So the managing as a business kind of works, but then it didn't. And all this stuff after COVID has then proved that point, because it was, oh, I'll throw some money, or I will then say that I can provide this for the X amount of money. And all this money was going here, there and everywhere and not actually being fully in control of where the money was or getting the final product.
Yeah, it's bad.
Angela said, which is where this is where I was doing the devil's advocate. I am Switzerland, but I kind of agree. But anyway, so no matter how much the general public wants to keep the NHS, while the Conservatives are in power, they will continue to wind it down. So they're going to make sure that it's not fit for purpose. Open up all those private takeovers. You can go and get any operation anywhere as long as you pay for it. You know, so why is everybody going over to Turkey? Because they can get their operations over there and they can get it cheaper than what we have to pay over here.
But that is the problem, though, isn't it? That is the problem, because it's not like it would be affordable here. It's not like they would say, oh, well, we've wound down the NHS, everybody have your national insurance back and use that to get your own insurance. And it won't be like that. And then not everybody will have the ability to,
of course,
discernment to know where to go. Oh my gosh, yeah. But for me personally, what Angela said is perfectly correct there, but it is still not transparent enough. And the reason why I say that, for example, it's not health related, but it's just the fact that I have been following it closely. And when you type into Google, you can see what interest the people in, like, this is to do with Facebook and TikTok, but you can see where their interests lie, where they've got those who have got shares in Apple, those who have got shares in Facebook, those who have got shares in Exxon, those who have got shares. It's all listed, all those senators or whatever there. It is 100% listed, and you can see why they vote the way they do. Over here, it only seems to come to light when somebody is annoyed. You know, somebody's annoyed, so therefore they spill the beans, rather than it being that they actually have to stick to the letter. Because we know that's the law here as well. They have to declare their interest, but they seem to have a way around not declaring it, and it only comes to light after the effect. So it's just that thing. It's like watching life in slow motion. You know what they're trying to achieve. You can kind of see it going there, but because you don't know what they're using to stir that agenda, you can't fight against it.
Yeah.
Does that even make sense? I think it does, but yeah.
Some of the NHS stuff, I mean, they going way back, as in, yeah, for me, I suppose 10 years, when they did all the changes for the IVF, to cut back on the NHS thing, it was a postcode lottery.
Lottery, yeah.
As in, for us here that was underneath the Luton and Dunstable Hospital, we could have 2 cycles of IVF. If I was over in over the border towards Buckinghamshire, I could have 1, and they were about to take that away. That they weren't going to offer it unless you actually made an actual declaration of the reason why that they're trying to do it. So it's not talking about sort of it's like the high odds or anything, but it was then saying that because both myself and my husband have got problems, that you're allowed to then have to put a quote in and put a thing in that you could have IVF. So quite a lot of people there were, rather than doing it privately here, because you were going to the same consultant and paying privately, they were going abroad to have their IVF abroad. Cyprus being one of them, and there was a big one in, I think it will change round, so it's like Poland kind of way. So it's one of those countries that kept changing, kind of thing. Because it worked out as cheaper, and you was getting the more input into it, because there was more of those people that were doing it as privately. They could actually then offer more like immune support and all that kind of stuff. So it was a higher level of treatment that you can't have over here. Well, you can have over here, but only if you go to Harley Street, for instance.
It's that elitism again, though, isn't it? It is that. Oh.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of different things that if you haven't got the money that's going into it, and you haven't got the doctors that they're constantly as part of it, you actually then lose some of the ideas and the testing and wanting to progress forward with the treatments. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost as if the NHS is just fixing you as far as it can.
Oh, absolutely.
There's not been a constant thing that's gone into it to look after the staff, to make sure that you've got a good high retention rate, to then involve them in some of the decisions and how they want to push forward in their own career, to find all these extra little bits and pieces. But what they do, they go to America, they go to wherever, where they actually then get paid better for their job, and there's better opportunities to actually do stuff like that.
Well, you see, when you go back to those days, though, when it was like that, I understand, and I could be wrong, that we had a really good reputation for research and development and all of the things, those bits that probably would come in a little bit. So even though they were doing the research and development and finding out, or we wouldn't necessarily be the recipients of that benefit. But now it's like we don't have any of it. You know, you don't have the practical side, you don't have the research and development, and the strategy is too business orientated. So,
because even things like people say, oh, they should be researching cancer treatments more. The government don't pay any money to that. It's all Cancer Research UK and Pancreatic Cancer UK, those kind of charities that are set up, that they get a few grants, but it's because they're actually talking to one another and actually making not only changes in what you're given to the drugs, but also how it affects you. So because there was this whole thing of, right, okay, to kill the cancer, we've got to do this, but then it actually then makes your body a lot worse while you're going through the treatment. They're actually now developing, like looking at that, so you as a whole kind of thing. But the government don't pay into anything like that. It all has to go through other ways of getting there. And it's, yeah, it comes from like the whole management side of things. So we are partly going down that private route because of where the money's coming from and how it's going through and everything else.
That's the thing. Unfortunately, it's not okay. I'm sure there are lots of MPs out there who are there because they're passionate. They probably started on the campaigning, stuff like that. But in the main, when you've got, it just goes into the, how do you put it, the social construct of the way the country is, in the sense that if you've got all well and good, the people who have got it doesn't really matter whether there's cancer research or those things there, because they've got enough money, they can go where they want to get what they need, and it doesn't really matter. And that really kind of, I'm not saying that people shouldn't matter, by the way, please don't get me twisted. I personally think everybody matters, but I just feel that the way the system is run, it's very, it's to do with the wealth that you've got, and and other people who are just exceptional, not that they don't follow any rules per se, and the rest of it doesn't matter, which is why the conversation is happening in those three key areas: in the health, the teaching, and transport.
Yeah.
Those are all the things that have a major impact on your health and well-being all the time. It is definitely linked.
Yeah. One of the things that we were talking about at the weekend, actually, these people that are making decisions about someone else's wages is in a position, in a job where they can have a wage, they can have extras added to that because they provide this professional support and do like these conferences or these personal telephone calls and things, so they can get these extra monies, but their wage doesn't go on their general day-to-day living or doing their work, because they can claim back so much. They haven't got an idea about how someone's then saying about someone else's wage. They can't have, because all they do is just then claim back this, that, and the other, or it goes onto the company credit card or whatever it is that however they do it. But they've all got these second homes. Why on earth, years ago, did they not buy a hotel in London and say, if you're here, you're staying here. You come into town to work, that is your apartment. And then you can have a home anywhere else. What?
So,
it just seems so simple to me, because they're either claim back to their train journey. If they're over a certain time, they claim back double.
Yep, and subsistence.
So they claim back more. Or they've got their second home and they have to look after that second home. So not only if they have got their flat in London or their appointment place in London, that they all claim back their travel from that place to work, or they get a car that comes with their job that we're paying for. You've then got all this other stuff that you end up claiming for, that is just this, that, and the other. They just don't have a clue.
But that is why that's why, going back to the strike, that is why the strikes don't bother them, because like you've 100% hit the nail on the head. They're deluded.
And also those people who have got these, doing all of these things that they're claiming, etc., they have no clue what everyday life is for all of us, obviously. But when you look at the junior doctors and the nurses and everybody else, but you're looking at the junior doctors who are working 14-hour days and things like that, who then don't have enough money to even buy food, heating, who are having to go to food banks and things like that.
They can't even eat at work.
They can't eat at work.
You can get a three-course meal in that place where they'll make the decisions. Where is it? Oh my God, I used to work near there. In Westminster. Yeah. Like, you could, good luck to you if you could get a sandwich and a cup of coffee on that in a cafe in the NHS.
Hold on. Thanks, Angela. Angela's got to go, so thank you. Thank you for being here and for contributing. Really, really great.
Yeah.
Really, thank you.
It's crazy. Thank you very much, Angela. Yeah, it is mad, which is why I just think it unfortunately we are home deal on the doctors, because it's such it's such a big deal. It's kind of unusual. It was unusual when the nurses went on strike as well, but It is. It's that thing where it's divide and conquer.
So on I don't know what they're called. Is it GMTV or whatever it is? In the morning, they were saying they were talking to a couple of the doctors who were striking, and the doctors was this particular doctor was saying that that obviously there's only a certain amount of people can come out. They have to have the right safety numbers within the hospital, and the senior doctors are then supposed to step up and do and cover whilst the junior doctors are striking. But I wonder if them senior doctors are doing those 14-hour days to cover for the junior ones on top of the job that they've already got. Yeah. But you know, I think the thing to remember is that, yes, they are going on strike, but they're not leaving the hospitals without any doctors. No. You know, they wouldn't do that. That is not something that they would do. Same when the nurses went out, there still had to be a certain amount working within the hospital so that they can then, you know, just literally work. Oh, we roll over too much in the UK.
That is
going too far, though.
But that just takes you right. If you look at France, so they came out in the masses, absolute masses, about their pension and the retirement age that was only going up a couple of years. Yeah, only went up a couple of years. They were out.
That's what I was alluding to. That's what that's what I was alluding to. But when you look at it, right, the other day they actually stormed an office that belonged to, and I've forgotten the man's name. I think it's called Black Rope, and this is a company that has its tentacles in everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. You are talking BP, you're talking Amazon, you're talking Apple, Facebook, you name it. This one person has, and you just think, so it goes back to what I was trying to say earlier, is that if you focus on the fact that France has come out, oh my God, they're doing A, B, and C, you just think, and obviously some people will sit back in their purple guilt and gold gilded chairs, hey, look at them, they're writing, they're causing. No, what they are noticing is the fact that there are just a few people who are just gathering up, and then you've got governments who are basically selling their hard-working people up the garden street. That is it. Because obviously it sounds as if it was just about pensions. I think myself, they can't all just be striking about pensions. How come?
But I think the point is, whether it's just about pensions or other things as well, the point is there are countries where they come out in masses.
Yeah.
And we don't. We do come out. People do. They go on strike. They're picketing. They're walking through London and da. Not the amount that happens. Some, you know, that you see in other countries. So are we rolling over, or do we roll over and just accept it? What are we doing? Send us a message. Let us know your thoughts. Answer on, what is it? What's the survey?
Survey monkey.
Yes. You know, tell us what you think.
Oh, that would be a good question. Is it too late to add that question, Shelley?
Are we rolling over?
What am I doing?
Because I said, is it too late to add that question to the survey? Because this says we're rolling over.
Are we rolling over?
So
I shall add that in there.
What?
Yeah. Oh my God. We need this show to be 2 hours.
No. Well, yeah, we do. But actually, maybe we need to do a one-off special. We could do we've done a special before though, haven't we, Shelley? So we could do.
Yeah, we've done all sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, we could do a one-off extended show that's not in Nike's 1 hour lunchtime because I have to leave.
Oh my God.
Maybe we need to come back to this again. Maybe we need to come back and talk about this because it is. I mean, obviously, it's very relevant because right now it's about the junior doctors, but actually, it's about, like you said, there's so many other, you know,
I think it is. It's key to me that I'm not saying that health and well-being and education does not affect people in the upper echelons of society, but obviously people. Okay, let's just use the traditional values word in here. Some say it doesn't exist anymore, but let's be honest, the people in the lower middle classes and the working classes rely on these things much more than the others.
Yeah.
And it just seems interesting now it's gotten to a stage where you've got the core people, like the junior doctors, the nurses, the transport, all of that on strike. It's crazy. We haven't had the local governments haven't joined in yet, but I mean, we're already seeing issues there.
I mean, Trisha just said about do you remember the poll tax riots? I do remember the poll tax riots.
Yes, I do remember that.
There were more people coming out. You know, it's okay. So time is getting on. Like I said, Nike's lunch break is nearly over. And she hasn't even eaten.
I'm prepared today. I'm prepared today. I've made myself something that I could just pour hot water into and eat it at my desk. So don't worry about me.
We will come back and talk about this and whatever else is going on. Like Dee says, nice to have a current topic show, you know. So we will come back and we will talk about this again. I think the last thing I would like to say is that this must be so frustrating for the junior doctors and everybody else, because they want to provide that health, they want to provide that service, they want to do all of those things, and they are exhausted. They're exhausted. They're not being paid what they're worth. They're not being paid for what they're doing, and they don't want to come out and strike. So yeah. Sorry, I was just going to go off on a tangent. Are the passport people still on strike? That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, because that was one of the ones I was kind of alluding to. That why? But why are they on? Why did they decide to go on strike? I think they were putting it on hold.
Oh, okay.
The extra bit.
What, right until the summer holidays when people need their passports?
That's what I was like. That was why I thought. That's what I thought I saw, and that was my first thought. They might as well just got it over and done with now, not when everyone's like.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we can talk about that when that comes back round and they then decide that they are going to do it, and we can have that conversation then. So Trisha's just put, she thought she turned into question time. We can do that as well, you know.
As my mum would say, that we got on our soapbox today.
We did. So before we finish, we have got an event coming up. Have we got a banner? Have we got a?
Yes, we've got. I was just going to say first, Thursday.
Life in a Lockdown community Zoom on Thursday. So Thursday the 13th, 7 till 9. You need to go on to our Facebook page and you need to register. So just so that we've got numbers, let people in, etc., etc. So yeah, that's Thursday evening. And then on the 20th of May, we have got our health and wellbeing event. We did one last year, which was absolutely fantastic. So we're doing it again at the Luton Irish Forum, 10 till 2. Come on down. You know, we've got various different rooms. There's lots of different things that is going to be going on. Yeah.
So it's for the whole of you. So it encompasses everything. So anything to do with your physical health, your mental health, is all related.
Yeah. So don't forget that 20th of May, health and wellbeing event, Luton Irish Forum, 10 till 2. And then we've got the biggie, the Black Bookcase, 3rd of June. So it's at Luton Sixth Form College, 12 till 6. There are still some exhibitor.
There's some exhibit spaces there.
Yeah,
you need to go onto the event. There's a Google form to fill out. So it's anyone that
Coming up for me.
is actually like from the African and Caribbean community, that if you've got a business, so that's the obvious being their books, booksellers, like authors, publishers, illustrators. But if you've then got any of the cultural and the arts as part of your business as well, so you fill out the form, and we'll then contact you afterwards if you're then successful, because we want to actually look to make sure that we have got a variety. So we haven't got, like, we don't want to say yes to everyone that first books in, and then there's something that then kind of comes up. So we're looking at that to make sure that it covers everything. There'll also then be a young person's part of that. So it'll then end up with some young authors and a young
authors
as part of that as well. But because it's the Black Bookcase, anyone is invited to come along and celebrate the Black culture. Don't be ever kind of like, sort of like, oh, it's just for them, because I don't like that, but sometimes it comes up in Luton. But yeah, it's open for everyone. And as part of that, what I've also got that should have come up in your notes in the comments as we started, Eid is coming up. We've got a company called Faith United Events. They actually do events in Luton, London, Birmingham. They're doing a pre-Eid Bazaar at the Crescent Hall. And because they've got some of the ones, because they work in London and Birmingham, they've got some of those big companies coming to that. So they've got all the clothing and everything else on there. And just in case you get caught out on anything, I think, there was meant to be one in Lucy Farm,
Okay.
Lucy Park. I couldn't find it this morning, so I apologise if you're not being, if I've not got you down on our list. But one Eid on Facebook and stuff, because of where it falls, 21st, 22nd, not quite sure which, they've got the prayers up at Stockwood Park and they've got the festival in Wardown Park.
Yeah, there is one at Lucy. There is one. I've seen the banner for it driving past.
Yeah. The festival in Wardown Park is always quite good. And then on Eid night itself, there will be fireworks. So if you live anywhere near the area and you only suddenly see fireworks or you hear fireworks, you know now what it is. Sometimes I see on Facebook, why is there fireworks? It's like, yeah, someone's celebrating somewhere.
Oh wow!
So we've got a lot happening. We've got a lot happening over the next few weeks. So sign up to our newsletter. Go on to our Facebook page. You can get all the information on there. And if you're watching on Catch Up, still make the comments about what we talked about today, because we will still talk about that and we'll read them out and share the info. So yeah, so if you're watching us on Catch Up, just let us know your thoughts. Should they be striking? Should they not be striking? Are we a rollover?
Are we a rollover? Yep.
Do we just let it happen to us? Is that what we're doing? I don't know. Anyway, see you next week. Next Tuesday, Simply Together show, 12 noon. Don't miss it.
Look after yourself, guys.
Bye to everybody.
Look after yourself. Bye. Bye-bye.